My name is Robert Ramsden, and this is a webinar where we demonstrate the new GP payments processes in PCSE Online. The webinar was recorded in October 2020 with a live audience. Before we get started, I'd like to point out that we will be demonstrating using a training environment which is filled with dummy data. I'll shortly be handing over to my colleague Ryan, who's going to talk you through each of the processes listed under the agenda. Questions asked throughout the demonstration will appear at the bottom of the screen. These will appear in real time with the answers to the questions. There will also be breaks in the demonstration for attendees to verbally ask questions. You will see me pop up from time to time to ask these questions on behalf of the attendees. I'll now hand over to Ryan, who will talk us through the adjustments process.
So first of all, just to let you all know, what I'm in at the moment is the PCSE Online login page. You'll access this through the PCSE website, which once as communications go out, everybody will receive a link to that. You'll all have your own unique login as well. So as Rob just mentioned, this is a training environment, so we've got lots of these different logins just for different parts of the system that we're going to be demoing today. So just going to sign in here. And this will take us through to a landing page, and depending on what position you hold, what access you've been given, you'll see either a payments tab, a pensions tab, or like this account here, you'll be able to see both. So I'll click payments. Depending on the level of access you've been given, it'll show you all the different options that are available to you that have been assigned to you. We're going to look at adjustments first of all. So I will click on adjustments, and this is where you'll come for when you want to make any amendments or adjustments to the monthly contract schedules for the practices in your area. Now, as soon as I've clicked on that adjustments tab, I come through to a search screen. Now, in the search screen, I can look for any existing adjustments that have already been created or put through. You can do that by entering the batch reference number, it's created by, the amount from and to, creation date, and so on. And you can even search by the status. So you may be looking for draft adjustments that have been created previously. Let me just see if I can enter some dates and then click search, and then straight away it's already come up with a list of existing batch adjustments that have been created previously, and it's a simple case of just clicking on the reference number and you can view that in more detail and edit it as you go. Now this is looking for batch adjustments. If I want to look at individual adjustments, or it may be like a ad hoc adjustment that you've actually put through, I will click on view all individual adjustments. I'm going to create a new one, which takes me through to another screen. And the first thing I need to do is just put an adjustment batch name in. What we would recommend, if you are doing a CSV upload as well with here, when you put the adjustment batch name in, you use it as the same as the file name as to what you are actually uploading. Then I'll click save on there. Get a pop-up saying that that adjustment record, that batch record has been created successfully. I'll click update. So that record's been updated as well. Now, if we come down, we can see the same search functionality that we've just been looking at. Say, for example, then we've got a monthly contract schedule, monthly contract variation spreadsheet open, and it's all been completed and filled in. And I want to do a bulk upload of adjustments for varying different practices and varying different types of adjustments that I want to upload. I'll click on upload bulk adjustment, choose a file, just go to CSV content, and yeah, so this is a file that's already gone through the necessary conversion to upload it. So click OK on there. Now it's come up with just a little bit of a summary of everything that's been uploaded. So again, it's shown as the file name, the status it's currently processing, when it was submitted, who it was submitted by, so that'll be the name that's registered to the user, myself in this case, the total number of records that have actually then been uploaded as well, and none rejected. So I'll click OK. So what's actually happened now, I've uploaded that bulk adjustment. All of the individual entries in that file have been populated in the system, and I can actually see these here, where you've then got the option to review these yourselves, edit as you see fit, and delete if necessary. If we click on CSV upload request, it will show me that pop-up that came up when I originally submitted the CSV bulk adjustment. Click OK there. Also, as you come, in fact, I'll just stay a little bit further up. What you can do is you can apply adjustments to a wide range of practices within a certain area by coming to this bulk adjustment screen. So let's say, yeah, minor illness. This may be one very particular blanket adjustment that we're wanting to put in. You can then do that by adding individual contractor names or codes, or you can filter it by the relevant RLT or CCG area as well. And as you then go down there, it'll drop down, and that would then apply to all the practices within that area. Once you do that through there, so much like when we did the bulk adjustment, and then we click on CSV upload request to see that summary, you'd be able to click on bulk adjustment request to see a summary of the actions that were just uploaded through there. I didn't upload anything though. There's no need to submit anything at that point, so there's nothing to show right now. And as part of the overview of this, so it may be a case that you need to do sort of a ad hoc adjustment, just a one-off. So I can go on add new adjustment, search for a particular practice there, but then you enter the payment type that you want the adjustment to be relevant to, the amount, the payment month, the payment day, and then you can add that as well, and it'll add as an individual adjustment in itself. Now, before I go into the actual file, when we talk about the CSV file, I would just actually like to throw back over to you, Rob, and ask if, now, do we have any questions from what we've just seen?
So I have a couple of things to point out while you're on this screen. So if you could just scroll down a little bit for me.
Yeah.
You'll notice that at the bottom you've got save for later and submit buttons. So it's probably good practice each time you upload something to save it for later, even if you're going to continue working on it. And then you just know that the successful uploads will be saved and you can go back to them. And then once everything is ready, you hit that green submit button, which I'll let Ryan do in his own time. But the ad hoc adjustment that we've just seen at the bottom, it's not let us pull a contractor code through because it's the test environment with dummy data. But you pull a contractor code through, you do the payment type, you do the amount, and then if you just want it to be added to the next payment run, you would choose the payment month. So I think, Ryan, it'd be good to show. So you did the upload of the file.
Yeah.
It'd be good to show how we get that upload ready, just for a bit of reassurance for the people on this call, because it is similar, pretty much the same as what you do today, but there is a little conversion step before you can upload it. So you can't just fill out the templates that you do today and upload them. There's a couple of button clicks before you can do that. Right, let me just answer a couple of questions in the chat then before you do that. So
sure.
Wayne's asked, has this process been communicated to GPs, practices and organisations who currently deal with the process? So it's been communicated that something is coming. What we wanted to do was hold these commissioner webinars first so that you can see the system before we do that big push out to practices to say this is what's changing. But in terms of changes for the practices, it's in payments world, it's not as elaborate as what this is. It is, instead of logging into OpenX to view the statements, they'll log into PCSE Online. Instead of logging into OpenX to do child IMS, they'll log into PCSE Online. And then someone here has put, it feels like a lot of manual input. Does the system interface with CQRS? And will we still have 2 payment runs a month for GMS and PMS? So I'm going to hand over to Ryan now just to show you how to do that conversion of the file. And then we'll see if that answers some of your questions, but if not, we'll probably have to take some of them away.
Right then, so what I've got up here now is, can you see that, Rob? Has it come through?
Yes, I can see it.
Cool, right. So this is a contract variation template, the particular one that I actually uploaded. Now this is one that has already been pre-populated, and it's something that would look rather similar to what you maybe already be used to. As we go through this, so let's see, so part of it is automatically populated as well. If I go through, is that in it? 4005. Enter that. So as soon as I've entered the practice code as well, so the CCG, the GMS, PMS, APMS columns have all been pre-populated as well. And it's just a simple case of working through and entering the relevant adjustment data that you're wanting to upload into PCSE Online. As we've already mentioned, that may be something that you're already quite familiar with, but once you've got that contract variation template saved with all your data in, what it needs to do is go through a conversion. Now, these files as well, as part of our support content that we'll be issuing out, you'll be able to find these.
What Ryan's talking about is we've created a guide for this process. So rather than us sitting here and talking you through it, there is a guide. And when you get to the screen where you need to do this, we've embedded the document in that guide.
Once you've then got these two files, so you'll need this macro file and this pay code advanced find view. If you click on the macro, for this to open up, and it says extract contract variation. Simply click on that button, then it asks you to open the pay code advanced view, find, which is here, then open the contract variation. So I'm just going to come through here. Is this the right one? Yeah. So then I choose my contract variation template as well. Brilliant. And what's actually then happened, if I can show you now, is the file that we've just been looking at, it will be going through a conversion, and then it will actually come out as one of these, sort of like a GMSA file, GMSM file, or a PMSA. But that is the overall conversion that it will then need to go through before you can click on the upload bulk adjustments button, and it can then be recognised by PCSE Online. Then that is the conversion it will go through. So Rob, just on that one then, because I feel like it may be a lot of information taken straight away. I mean, do we have any other questions following on from that?
So we do have some questions. I think the one that's most relevant to what we've just seen is, do you have to split ad hoc and monthly payments? Matt, do they have to split ad hoc and monthly payments? Can you answer that question?
Yes, no, you're correct. The variation spreadsheet will allow you to enter both ad hoc and monthly. They will then get split out as part of the macro, just created into two separate CSV files, just so they can be checked easily. But no, you can do it all on one contract variation spreadsheet going forwards.
So Ryan, is it on that screen? So the bottom file was the original contract variation spreadsheet. Yes. That Ryan completed, and then when he's run it through the macro has split it into those three different files for upload. In terms of doing the work that you do today as the commissioner, you would just do it in one file, so you don't have to split it out. The macro will split it out so that it can be easily recognised by PCSE Online. Stuart has asked, can we be copied into all comms sent to GP practices, LMCs, etc.? So I'm going to say yes, that falls into my world. So we'll make sure that we do that for you. You will get your own specific communications. So just be mindful that if we're going to be copying you in, some of it will be specifically for you as a commissioner with links to your resources, and then some will just be FYI, this is what's gone out to everyone else. Leah has asked, will PCSE be contacting all practices with their new login details, access information for PCSE Online? So we have already done that. So what we've done is we've set user administrators up at each practice based on their OpenExter logins. And it's that user administrator's responsibility to set up the additional users within the practice. Much like the exercise that we've gone through with getting the commissioners registered, you have to decide who it is in the organisation who should be able to do what, because PCSE, we don't want to make the decision and say, oh, this person at the practice should be able to see statements, when we don't know really. It could be somebody who just needs to do one of the other processes. So the user administrator has been given that authority and ability to set up additional users. Now we've done the initial, this is who your user administrator is and this is their responsibility. We're following that up, and we may have already sent this actually, but we're following that up with you are the user administrator. These are the roles that you definitely need to get set up for go live. So things like viewing statements, child IMS, Locum A approval. We're encouraging that practices get those set up from day one. probably another one that's relevant to what we've just been talking about. Kieran's asked, is Open Exeter still closing and will GPs not be able to access? So I think a bit of the confusion around closing Open Exeter, it is any processes which will be managed by PCSE Online won't be managed through Open Exeter. So the things I've just talked about, statements and child IMS, practices won't be able to access those screens in Open Exeter because they access them through PCSE Online, and we don't want that duplication of data in two different environments. But if there are other things that they do in Open Exeter, then they'll still be able to access and view and manage those. I think that's it for now. So Ryan, I think next on my list, should we have a look at statements since we've just been talking about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually in the right profile as well for statements, and this is where I was talking earlier about one user being given different privileges within PCSE Online, but as a commissioner, of course, you can view statements. Just go back a bit, see all the different options we've got. We've just been looking at adjustments. We'll now click on statements. So I am now just going to come back here. Click search. Great. So first of all, when we come into the statement screens, the first thing you'll notice at the top is the search functionality, much like what we've just been looking at in the adjustment screen. What you can do here is you can enter a contract code, and it will then search for all the relevant contract codes for all the practice in your area. Again, it's not finding anything there like it did with the adjustments because it's a training environment. You can also filter the list of statements that will also be available. So you can look for your drugs, your contractual, your dispensing GPs. And of course, as I did, I looked through a date range of the different statements that are also available. Whenever you enter your search criteria, simply hit search, and a summary of all the different statements that appear in that search under that search criteria will come up in this list. It will also show you the relevant CCG, the organisation number, their name, the type of statement there is that we're actually looking at, statement date, total from the CCG, the total received in the statement from the NHS, and of course the total net amount on the statement. So Rob, actually, jog my memory, when we were testing this, did we click on the first one or the second one? I think it was the first one, wasn't it?
Yeah, click on the first one. The second one looks like it's got a lot of
data. But simply, if you want to view that statement in more detail, you just click on that hyperlinked reference number. Once we're in here, we can see another summary of the statement. So the statement date, those amounts that the statement that is built up in the statement, and the contract code it is relevant to. Each statement as well will be given its own unique reference number. And then when we come down here to the description, so I can see straight away that this statement is built up in two different parts. So one is the drug statement, and then one is more specific to the actual practice itself. Now I can click on these individually just so it drops down, and then it gives me the individual breakdowns of everything that's included in that statement. Or if I wanted to see everything all at once, I can click this button that says expand all. You see here, it's all being displayed for us. So when we're looking at this, it'll show you the pay code that is relevant to that particular payment in the statement. Again, a description on the source of where it's come from and the amount. And as you go down, you'll always see the total amount of what's being accumulated from each individual section as you work through it. So that's pretty much all the data that you'll see there, but in other scenarios, you'll also be able to see adjustments. So like we've just been looking, if any adjustments have gone through for the monthly contract schedules and it's caught up to the next statement month, you'll see that data there. You'll see CCG breakdowns, you'll see NHS payment breakdowns. And another part of PCSE Online is the claims portal. So if the practice has submitted any water rates claims, for example, or premises claims, or any locum cover claims, and them claims have been reimbursed from you as the commissioner, you'll be able to see that breakdown on here as well. Now, I'm just going to collapse all those for now. What you can also do, and is exactly the same for practices, is you can actually download a copy of this for your own record keeping. You have a couple options when it does come to downloading it. So you can download a collapsed version, which would look very similar to what the screen's on now, or an expanded version as well. When you come to download the actual statement, you have the option to print it off. You can download it as a PDF, which I'll click on this now. Oh, there we go. It's just downloading here. And yeah, so then I'll click on that, and now I've got a PDF version of that actual statement. It's following the same process again. You know, I can also download that in a CSV format as well. So it's completely down to whatever is preferable to yourself in your office and when you come to actually downloading that file. So that will download in just a moment, and I should then be able to show you a copy of the CSV. There we go. Yeah, so I'm just going to open that. There we go. So then this has downloaded the statement in a CSV file with all the relevant figures on there. I will pause here at the moment as well, just for any questions, but there is also a migrated statements view we'll look at in a moment. So Rob, I'll just hand back over to you.
So Leslie's put, can we extract any of this information? But you've just shown that really. You can export it as a CSV. I think the CSV is probably most useful. I think in terms of PDF, you can't manipulate the data or filter it in any way. So it ends up just being the same as what you can see in PCSE Online. But whereas the CSV, it puts it in an Excel file for you, so you can do hookups and whatever else you need to really. Mandy's asked, will practices have training on statements, viewing and downloading, etc.? So Mandy, we've recorded a webinar where we do exactly this for practices to talk them through how to access the statements and highlight the fact that they can download them, export them, and we've also done a guide as well for practices.
So I just want to show everybody the migrated statements view as well. So as part of the transformation for GP payments and pensions, we'll also be migrating up to the last 6 years of practice statements into PCSE Online. Now, these are migrated statements, they are in a separate part to the initial statements we've just looked at. It looks incredibly similar to what we have just gone through though. So in terms of entering the contract code to look for the practice whose statement you'd like to view, filtering it down to the particular type of statements as well that you'd like to view, and then entering in the particular statement month or the particular statement year as well. So I'll just try something here. So here we can see we've got a massive list of my statements that have been migrated over into PCSE Online. Again, if you click on the contract code hyperlink, what this should do, it should take you into a little bit more detail about the statement, actually what's being migrated over. And this is very much how it looks on the initial statement view that we've also just looked at. It's just a simple case of clicking the drop downs and then there'll be more data underneath it all as well. Oh, there we go. And so yeah, so as well as your statements, there would also be the option for a migrated statements view. Okay, so that statement's there. Again, do we have any questions regarding the migrated statements, Rob, before I move on to optional services?
Stuart's asked if OpenExtra is disappearing, how will we continue to view patient details, etc.? So OpenExtra is not disappearing. The GP payments processors are moving from OpenExtra to PCSE Online. So with statements migrating from OpenExtra to PCSE Online, we're also migrating historical statements as well. So it's only from here on out, but it's 6 years plus the current year that we're in. I think there's a bit of confusion about OpenExtra disappearing. This is not that. This is us starting to move work from OpenExtra.
Right, and so we've looked at adjustments and statements. So what we're going to take a look at now is optional services. Now, as Commissioner, you have the functionality to go into a statement, into a practice's profile and view the optional services that that practice is registered to provide. You will also have the ability to amend those optional services. Just going to try and look at them from this profile first of all, actually. So let's see. Okay, so I'll go and select contractor. Yep. Search. Got a search functionality up here where we can enter the contractor code, contract type, or the contract type for payment as well. When we've entered our search criteria and click search, get a simple list up. You know, it's just broken down into columns: contractor ID, practice name, address, type, and so on and so forth. If we want to view these optional services in more detail, we'll click on the blue hyperlinked contractor ID. And here, so for Barton Gate Surgery, we can see the contractor code as well. We can see all the optional services that this practice is, again, opted in to provide. So we can also see the out-of-hours service that was opted out, and we can see that last change when it took effect. And as Commissioner, we then have the ability to amend these optional services that are available. So if I click on the Change Preferences button, so let's say I want to opt this practice out of contraceptive services. I will then click on the date. Once I've clicked opt out, and then it's a simple case of coming down to the bottom and clicking submit. And that practice's optional services will be amended from the date that in that box. And that is the optional services view. So I'm just going to cancel that for now because we don't really need to submit it. And that's effectively everything that you can see in that area there. And I suppose before I just move on, I would like to ask, do we have any questions regarding the optional services portal?
Nothing specific to that. Matt, I'm going to ask you the next question. If we don't have the answer now, then we can always get it afterwards. But it's the second question we've had about CQRS. Michael's put, as NHSE/I Public Health Finance for GP vax, can we presume that CQRS, for as long as it is still running, will automatically feed into PCSE Online, and therefore we will see no difference with the payments entered into NHSE/I's ledger?
Yeah, so we will, as part of the solution, we will still be getting the monthly feeds from CQRS. So any payments instructions we receive at the moment via CQRS, they will go into the new solution directly from CQRS and will appear on the statements as they do today. So there's no need to replace that process by the variation spreadsheet. It should just be BAU from that perspective.
Great. And then the next one, I think I know the answer to from having to play around on the system, but I'll double check. So Mandy's asked, can we run reports for the whole CCG to see what optional services each practice is signed up for?
I don't think there is a standard report. I think we were looking at potentially giving that reporting capability to commissioners if a request comes into PCSE. So there's no standard report on the system, but there is a report that can be run should that be required.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I know from when we've had a click around the system that I've not seen that anywhere, but yeah, if you need the report, then PCSE can provide it. And similarly, Leslie, with the question that you've asked, is there any way of knowing who made the change? So in terms of logging in and viewing that audit trail, you can't see it as an end user, but we can see it in the back end, which is why everybody has individual logins. So if there is any questions around who has done what change, you can raise that with PCSE. I appreciate that there's a few questions that we've not answered yet, but I'm just conscious of time. So Ryan, do you want to take us through the next demo, see if that flushes out any more specific questions?
Yeah, so our next demo, I believe we are going through, QOF. So we're going to look at the quality and outcomes framework. So again, staying with the same user, we've got a search functionality where, as we've already seen, you enter the contract code. Here you can choose the financial year that it is, or that's relevant to the search that you want to do. You can also select the contractor, look via the RLT or CCG, then simply click search, and PCSE Online will then filter through all the relevant practices within that area or within the search criteria that you have entered into here. And straight away then, so we've been given this list as well. In fact, this is actually something I've not shown you. So when you do actually get these lists, sometimes there's more than one page. So if you scroll to the bottom, you'll be able to see just a little bit of a ribbon that will show you how many pages this will then actually go up to, and how much data you may then have to filter. I put a very broad filter on that, and that is why there's so many searches that have actually then been returned. In the main summary window. Once it's been populated, it'll show us the relevant financial year. So this is going back to 2014-15, the contract code that the QOF is relating to, the contractor name. We can see the aspirational figures and the achievement figure as part of that as well, the total value paid, and then the payment history. If we're actually to click on the payment history, but when you click on there, you'll be able to see all the relevant payments that have been made historically. And if we click on the financial year, it'll show us the baseline monthly payments value, and that'll be broken down from the relevant dates that you've searched. And that is QOF in a nutshell. I can't think if there's anything else that I need to show you on here, because it is really just search functionality and view only from there. So back to yourself. I mean, do we have any questions in the chat, or is anything come up from this screen?
Kieran's asked, can we see how many QOF points they achieved in PCSE Online?
No, we only get limited information. So because we act as, in reality, the payments house, we just get instructions on how much money to pay. We don't get given the detailed information around the QOF payments.
Right, thank you, Matt. I think we're fine. If anybody thinks of any QOF related questions, stick them in the chat. Let's move on to the next process, right?
Yeah, so what we'll look at now is your APMS PMS baseline, or as it's referred to here, your Pay PMS baseline as well. So again, sticking with the same user, click APMS payment summary. As we've already seen, we're back to a search screen, so you can search for a relevant practice who you would actually like to, whose PMS, APMS payment instruction you'd like to view. You've also got the financial year, which I'm just going to select them all just for a broad range search. But this is where you just enter all of your search criteria. Click that. Great. So now that I've searched, this is then much like the QOF screen, it's come up with a bit of a summary of all the PMS, APMS contracts that we've got registered. Again, if you click on the financial year, it'll give us a bit more information around the payment details for that one particular practice. If we look in this menu again, we'll see the contract code, name, what the instruction type is, so whether it's a flat amount or whether it is also a custom amount that's actually being put in as well. And we'll be able to see the annual contract value, whether it's been entered, rolled over, and we can also view the payment history. There's no data in there at the moment, but once it goes live and the system's in full use, there will be data in there to then actually show. In here, you can actually change the baseline as well for different practices by simply clicking on this button. And then it's much like what we've already seen. You'll be able to enter the contract code for the practice, choose whether you want to enter a flat amount or choose whether you want to enter a custom amount as well. Back to you. I mean, do we have any questions that have come through based on this?
So the next one from Stuart, can the system calculate PMS contract payments, or do we have to upload CV files?
So there's two options, as Ryan said. There's a flat amount, and then there's a amount per patient. So what you can actually do is you can enter the number in, and I think it's the number of patients and the amount per patients. The system will then work out obviously what the annual payment is, and then proportion that across the year.
Okay.
If
and
there's a different calculation amount, then no, we only cover the flat rate, the flat amount, and that one custom amount. So
great. And then a follow-up question about flat rate. I'm not sure if that just answered it, but I'm going to ask it. Can you enter more than the flat rate for APMS if they have two payments that go out to them?
No, I believe there's only a singular entry per practice, so you'd have to sum them or work them out.
Okay, thank you. Just to say, sorry, I weren't able to show you this before, but so I've just logged out of that user who was using in with another. So when it comes to doing your PMS, APMS baseline entry, this is the screen that you'd actually see. So this is where we're looking at the, you'd enter the contractor code for the practice that it's relevant for, choose whether it's a flat amount. So as soon as we've done that, it blocks out the number of patients and the custom value or you can click custom, which does the opposite, and it blocks out the annual contract value. Now they are singular entries, and if you do want to upload sort of bulk, you can attach a CSV file with all those entries on and click upload, much like we did in the adjustment screen as well.
Cool, thank you. Right, I think at this point, rather than ask any more questions, let's jump on to the next process. So then we've got 4 more processes that we need to show you. But if there's any processes that we want to revisit and we've got time at the end, we will do.
Okay, so what we're going to look at now then is the claims portal, or what is the claims portal now to a practice. So built into PCSE Online is a claims portal, and this allows practices within your region or across the country to submit premises claims and locum cover cost claims to you as a commissioner to review and approve. Water rates claims, things like that, for example. But also there's the functionality within the claims portal for a practice to submit locum pre-approval. Now what that means is before a practice can come to you and put a claim through for locum cover cost, they first must need to have submitted a locum pre-approval. Is something that we can take a look at. So here we submitted 2 claims earlier, so on behalf of a practice. Now, once this is your commissioner's standard claims approval screen, so there's nothing showing in the table below at the moment. And as with the other screens, there's just a search functionality that we need to go through. So this is, when I was using that other user, this is the contract code I was looking for quite a lot. And it's really varied. It's really intuitive in terms of the practices that you are actually looking at. Like I've just typed in the first letter of a practice code there, and it's come up with a list of all the different practices that it could be relevant for. But I believe it's come from this one. So I'm going to enter that there, click search. And straight away then I can see we've got a claim just up here that is requiring validation. And this is a claim that we submitted this morning. It's from the Heron Medical Practice. I can see it's a water rates claim, the claim start date and end date. I can see that it's pending. So in our office, no one's actually taken a look at this yet, and the approved claim amount and the authorization justification. Now, before I come to these boxes, with any claim that is actually submitted to your office, it goes through what we call a 2-tier approval. So the first tier is validating the claim. This will go to a user within your office to review the claim, review the information that's been sent through. To do that, you'll click on the claim number. Now, once I click on the claim number, this is exactly how the premises claim will have been submitted to your office from the practice. The only difference is they will have filled all this information in. They'll have chosen what type of premises claim they want to submit. They'll have chosen the claim period as well. The contract code, name and address is automatically populated and filled in from different parts of PCSE Online. The file upload, so they're required as part of any claim to submit evidence to you, to your office, and that's when they need to attach and upload it, like we did earlier with the CSV files. If I were to click on this link here, it would then download the document at the top. I'm not going to open it now because there's nothing on it, it's just a test document. The practice, they also get the option within the claims portal to have the amount that they're claiming for reimbursed directly to the landlord of the property. There's a mandatory text box. They will use this to add just some narrative, really, just some supporting evidence for the claim, just so when you're looking at this, you can make an informed decision as to whether you can approve this claim or not. And then, of course, there's the total claim amount that they have then entered. So let's say we have reviewed all this. We're happy with what we have actually seen. Go back into the claims portal. Let's just say click on pending claims. Brilliant. Now then, it may be a case that I'm happy with this, so I want to approve this claim for the full amount. So that is exactly what I would type in, the approved claim amount. So validate, click confirm. And it has then actually gone through. But that claim has now been validated. So I'm just going to log out of here, and this was that's the first tier of that approval stage. So I'm just going to very quickly log in with another commissioner role, payments and claims, and then the claims approval as well. Now, what should actually happen is, and this is something that is it's occurring throughout PCSE Online as well, is you'll see this message icon at the top, and this is what lets you know that there's actually a piece of work or something for you then to actually review within PCSE Online. So if I click on these messages now, great stuff. So I can see I've got a notification that that claim we've just been looking at, logged in as a different user, has now passed that first level of approval. And that's letting you know that you now need to go into PCSE Online, go into that claims portal and actually look at the claim that was validated. And then it is up to you as the approver to make a decision as to whether you are going to approve that claim. So yeah, so this is the claim we've looked. We can see that it's all been validated. Enter some text in here, just some narrative. If as the approver, if I wanted to, I could click on that claim number again. I could review all the same information that the person who validated the claim also looked at. And you know, that's completely down to your discretion as the approver, but it gives you the summary here. We're confident in the knowledge that it has already been approved and validated. Simply click approve. That would then create a notification that would then be sent back to the practice who generated the original claim. They would actually get an email notification as well, letting them know that something has been completed. So that is a standard claims portal there. Let me just click on the pre-approval actually. Great stuff. So just before I move on to the pre-approval, Rob, do we have any claims? Do we have any questions, sorry, about the premises claims?
Yes, lots. So I'll ask that and I'll answer them. They're all really good questions. So the first one Stuart put was, does the practice need to know a payment code for making a claim? And that is no. So that first drop-down box that had a description of the claim, PCSE Online knows what the payment code is, so it's not reliant on the end user to know the payment codes. We work on descriptions from like a user interface. Wayne's asked, NHS England manage on behalf of CCGs for certain services such as locums. So is the approval being sent from the practice to the CCG for approval or NHS England for approval?
Rob, on that one, just to confirm though, for claims, they will always generally go to the CCG unless it's a non-delegated CCG, and in that scenario it will go to the RLT. But for claims, they do go to the CCG. The adjustments, it depends on who enters it. But for claims, it has been requested that they go to the CCG to approve them. So
okay.
Just to confirm that. Okay.
Cheers for that, Matt.
That's right.
Kieran's asked, can claims be uploaded by the contract variation template? Little concerned that we're asking practices mid-year to change their mindset, which won't be easy. Yes, they can. So it can still all be done through contract variation. This is a claims process that sits separate to that. So yeah, claims can be done through your contract variation templates. Can you run a report to see all outstanding claims for your CCG and bulk approve? No, but the notifications tab and this table that Ryan is on is like your report because you can filter it by what is pending, what's been approved, but you still have to individually sign those off. Next question, is there any hierarchy in the approval limits? So no, the hierarchy is that two-tier approval, and then there's no limits within those approvals. It just goes through person A who signs it off and then person B who approves it for payment. Right, David's asked, with regards to email notifications for approval, is it one per claim or do they batch notifications? I believe that it's one per claim, and it's all users with the appropriate role who will get the email notification. When they click and then land on this screen, they'll be able to see whether or not that's still open or if it has been closed. Yeah, Leslie's put, the spreadsheet was sent out, but we had no idea how the system worked, so it was difficult to complete, and I appreciate that. So I'm hoping that now you've seen the screens and how to navigate through the screens and getting a bit more context. If there's any changes to your user roles, we can put those in. But yeah, we just need to know. But we're looking at how you would manage that yourselves anyway, which I don't think we've got a definite answer on just yet. But we'll keep you in the loop with regards to users. Before we actually set them up, we're going to check to see whether or not there's any gaps. So if you set up like a ton of approvers and no data entry people, then we know that that process is not going to work because it needs that someone with that role in between. So we'll let you know if that's the case as well. The last one I'll ask on just on claims before we move on. David has put PMS baselines and monthly payments already set up in Exeter for this financial year. Will these be automatically transferred to the new system, or do we need to upload again? So they will be migrated over. There'll be a date where we're taking a cut of data of everything that's in Exeter. So anything that's already established will be migrated over. The answer to the question is you don't need to upload it again. It'll just move over. And I'll answer the last one because Stuart's just come in. So will there be an easy access help desk to contact if any issues have to go live? So yes, there will be an early life support team where we have a team of key people within PCSE and external organisations that can raise any issues so that we can fix them quickly. In terms of how to use the system, I'm hoping that when you get sight of the guides, that they are self-explanatory and they help you to navigate through the system. But we've built in a feedback mechanism in the back end, and Ryan and I will be reviewing that feedback daily. So I'll just encourage you, like, if you spot something that you think this is not in here or we could do with a bit more information, let us know in the feedback at the back of it and we'll put it in. Angela's asked, can you show us the actual locum claims? If we get some time at the end, we'll log in as a practice and show you what they do to put the claim through.
Well, actually, just following on from that, so I'm just about to show you the pre-approval. I can show you something very similar to that just in here, or what a practice would actually submit. So am I all right to take over from now, Rob?
Yeah, go for it.
Great. So let's say, so we're still logged in as a commission, not as a practice. So I'm just going to search for any approved pre-approvals that have actually come through. And you'll notice these are in two separate tabs. So all as premises claims will come through. Standard claims, pre-approvals, pre-approvals. So I'll click search on there. And here we can see we've had one pre-approval that's been previously submitted. This has previously been approved. But when I click on that pre-approval claim number, and I think just linking back to one of the questions as well. So although some of your claims can actually go through the adjustment screen as well, it will be a necessity for practices to actually submit their locum pre-approvals through the claims portal. So when they come down, they'll get a bit of a drop down here, and it's just them choosing the reason why they'd actually like that locum cover. The absent performer details as well. So this is where the practice would have entered in the GMC code for the performer who was actually taking some leave for one reason or another, entering the dates that they will be absent for. Also the contract code. So this is all just relevant to the practice that performer is registered to. Upload very much like the premises claim, you know, they've got to upload some sort of supporting evidence to support the claim for you as a commissioner to actually review. They have to enter some text as well. Now, when it actually comes to them claiming for the locum cover off the back of the pre-approval, imagine if this form was active. So once this has been approved by us, it goes back to the practice. So this is now a live form, if we imagine, except the only difference is they would see everything that can be seen on the screen, but now to claim for the locum cover, there'll be an option to add locum cover, the details of the locum who undertook the cover. You then just click on that pop-up. It would then say you'd have to enter the locum's GMC number. It'd automatically populate with their name and their professional details. You enter the dates that they are claiming for and the amount that that locum is claiming for. And like I said, that's just a drop down that looks, I think it comes just under the contract code actually. Looks very much like everything else that we've already seen. But again, the pre-approval is something that would also come through to you to review, and it would go through to the person in your office with the approver role. So that, again, that's pre-approvals and that's the locum cover in a very short nutshell. Rob, just before I move on, do we have any questions regarding the pre-approvals?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Matt this one about limits, but I'm just going to say, like, Ryan's just done the imagine what this looks like. It's in the guide that we're going to share with you that shows you what a locum claim looks like. But I mean, you described it pretty well, but for the people who've never seen it before, Like, I think they need to see it, but it'll be in the guide so that you can see an actual screenshot of what a claim looks like. And sorry, Angela, I misunderstood your question. And then when you've put the bit of context around it, like, it makes a lot more sense that you want to see the claim. So it'll be in the guide, and I'll share the links to that after this. Matt, Kieran's asked, are there locum limits in this system for locum claims? So, for example, maternity is 2,000 per week.
That we've not actually implemented any limits in the system. Obviously, the local practices will request an amount from the commissioners, but then the commissioners have the ability to restrict it to a certain amount if that's what their business rules are. So if they're only willing to pay 2,000 as part of the two-stage approval, they can actually approve a lower amount than was requested.
Okay, I think that makes sense because Angela's put underneath our top limit for maternity is different to that. So yeah, when Ryan's been going through the claims, you can enter a different amount and then some justification. So in that scenario, Kieran, if it was more than 2,000 for the week, you could type in 2,000 and explain in the text box that the limit is 2,000. Just put for locums, we require sight of a sick note or MAP-B form. Can the practice attach scans of these so that we can approve or reject? Yes, they can. So when Ryan went through the premises claim, he uploaded a test Word document, and when we approved it and he dropped into it, there were a document that just said test, but that is where MAP-B one form would be or your sick note would be. So yeah, and same as what I've just said before about the approval limit, if someone hasn't attached that, you could reject that claim, put some narrative in there, say you need to attach the MAP-B one form, and that goes back to the practice, and instead of them having to start the claim again, they get the same claim back saying it's been rejected. They can revert it back to a draft, attach the file, submit it again, and it comes through to you with the file attached. Phillips put, surely the system should limit the amount to the maximal claimable amount under the SFE. At the minute, it doesn't, so there isn't a limit. We weren't asked to put a limit in there. With everything that you see today, like PCSE is the new starting point. When this goes live, this is day one. It does what we think it needs to do, but there's scope to make improvements down the line, but we need people to start using it and giving real experiential feedback on it and making recommendations before all that happens. I think that's everything. I think the rest is just conversations about that. So Ryan, do we have solo next?
So solo work. So again, I've logged in with a different commissioner role. If we were to click on solo income data entry, here we can actually enter individual periods of pensionable work. We've got a search functionality at the top, and this is where then we can enter anything relevant to that particular performer that's carried out any solo out of hours pensionable work. Once we've filled those details in, it's just a simple case of ticking to confirm and submitting that form, but that is just one individual entry. Also in solo work, there's a solo upload. So if you have a solo practitioner that has multiple entries of periods of pensionable work that they'd like to actually submit, they can upload that onto a CSV file, choose that file, click upload, and that would then populate down here. But effectively that is solo here. There's also an application listing, and actually it's something we've not talked about before. So you'll see listing screens attached to many different processes within PCSE Online, and effectively they are summary screens, so they'll show you anything that's been previously submitted, approved, pending, etc. In the solo one particularly, you can filter it by the GMC code. You can look at the status. So if I just put approved in there, I'll put a wide date range in and click search. Yeah, so nothing's been previously submitted on this account, but again, that's an option for you there. So Rob, again, do we have any questions relating to this?
So the first one is from Mandy that says, can the system spot potential duplications? So we'll say from experience of running the webinars where we need to prep certain scenarios where we've tried to put locum cover claims through for the same period, for the same organisation with the same performer, it says, no, you can't do that. So I know that there are some validation rules in spot duplications for that scenario. Matt, I don't suppose you know what other scenarios PCSE Online does that for, do you?
I don't, I'm afraid. I'm not that close to the solo.
All right, cool. So we'll go away and we'll find out, because it is probably quite reassuring to know where PCSE Online will do that work for you, and we'll get a list together.
I can say, Rob, just with that, when we are uploading CSVs into multiple different parts, so I know it includes solo childhood immunisations as well. For example, when a practice is uploading those figures, PCSE Online, it'll generate a report. It'll show you all the successful entries, any failed entries or errors, and I'm sure any duplications will actually come up on there as well as an error.
We'll still work on getting that definitive.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to know what you need to be paying attention to, and maybe putting some extra checks in. But PCSE Online does it all for you, then that's quite reassuring. David's put, will we get a template for the APMS Baseline bulk upload? So this is not about solo, but going back. Yes, there will be a template provided. And then the next, what about duplicates in premises? I'll add that to the list. I'll find out whether or not it does that. Do you want to move on to the next process, Ryan?
So locum approval. Okay, just give me 2 moments. Okay. So when a locum has completed their Locum A form, they will naturally need to send that off for approval and review, and that can come to you as a commissioner to actually review. So we've logged in now with that usage right. I'm going to click on Locum Work, Locum Form A Approval. And what we can see here is 2 Locum A forms that we submitted earlier. It's very straightforward here, shows you the claim number. So you could log in here and you could see numerous different entries of locum work that's actually been submitted, the name of the performer who submitted that period of work, see that particular performer's pension scheme number and the region that they're assigned to, the work start date, end date, the fee that they were paid during that period. PCSE Online would automatically calculate as well the 90% of what that pensionable element is of that total fee, and the employer contribution that is paid. And then it is simply a case for you to click on either approve or reject for either one of those claims. If we click on reject, a text box appears. Just need to enter a little bit of a narrative to say why we've actually rejected that amount that has then been sent through. Once you have made your decision, whether you're approving or rejecting, you would click submit. That would then send those claims back, or a notification back, to the performer. And when that performer then comes to compiling their Locum B form, they can automatically select all the approved A forms from PCSE Online. So they're not having to re-enter that data. They've simply got to click a button and all that data is then pulled from different sources and compiled into that one form. And that is approving a Locum A form. So again, back to Rob. I mean, is there anything else we need to show them on here, or do we have any questions just regarding the locum work?
No, I think it's quite simple in terms of approving the Locum A form. So just for a bit of reassurance, that's one of the things that we're encouraging the practices to educate themselves on quite early on and set up that approval role within the practice in case these Locum A approvals come through to the practice. And then for the locums themselves, we're doing a guide around how to complete the Locum A form, which is pretty much the same as what they do today with the offline version. Let them know that it goes through PCSE Online for approval, and then comes back in to compile a Locum B form. So someone's asked, what is the Form A? So it's where the locum GP can record instances of pensionable locum work that then has to be signed off and approved by the practice, who agree to the employer contributions. Once the practice or the commissioner signed off on that, then it goes back to the locum for them to put into the Locum B form, which is what they submit to NHS pensions. It's the process that locums follow today, so it's not something that they're unfamiliar with. And then I think the last thing I've got on my list, Ryan, is just showing child IMS through PCSE Online.
So childhood immunisations, then again, you have you kind of have the ability to view a practice's childhood immunisation cohorts through PCSE Online. So quite aware this is relatively new functionality for you as well. I suppose the main added thing in here for commissioners is you will also have the ability to extend the cohort submission window for a practice in where that is necessary to do so. So you log into PCSE Online, click Childhood Immunisations. Now, once Childhood Immunisations then loads up, we'll be able to see a summary of all the different cohorts that are currently outstanding or that have previously been submitted from that practice. There we go. First thing we see is a search screen, so we can actually look for the cohort period for any particular period that's relevant to whatever we are searching for. You can look for the cohort status as to whether it's been submitted, not submitted, and so on. The cohort type as well, so you can narrow it down to the 2 or the 5-year-olds. If there's a deadline that has been attached to that, payment line status as well. Now, if we just click search, just like I said, entered a broad date range again. Yeah, so here we can see the contractor name, the cohort period, the cohort type, the number of children included in that cohort, the percentage that have been immunised, the threshold that's been achieved, and we can have the option here to extend the submission window. So let's say I want to take that to the 31st of March next year. Click submit, click confirm, and that submission window would then have been extended. Now that is just a submission, an extension for one practice. Again, there is also the option up here to extend the deadline for all practices. So again, it's something that would be used in very rare circumstances, but if there's ever a need that's required to extend that window for all the practices within your region, simple case of clicking that pink button just there and entering the date you need to submit the submission window to. And that is childhood immunisations.
A note from Janet saying it's only the region commissioners that can extend submission deadlines. And I think just to reinforce that this is not going to be a standard practice, it's the same rules as that stand today, whereas all this is given the facility to do is if in the past you would email PCSE asking them to extend the deadline, the regional commissioners can do it themselves by logging in, but it's not going to be a common practice thing where that is happening. Let me just have a look at the questions. So I think we're going back to some other topics now rather than around child IMS. But Ed has asked, will practices that have issues with pensions be able to raise their queries through this system? For example, leaves or starters in the contract. We've not looked at that today because we're only looking at the processes that are specific to commissioners and the access that you'll have. But there is leavers and joiners functionality in the pension side of things for practices, and they will have their own guides and their own webinar explaining how to use that. So pensions and performance lists are still very much linked, but we do have the situation today where in the past where an MPL3 wouldn't be completed, so the pension deductions would still be taken. What's going to be introduced with PCSE Online is if the performer doesn't do their legal requirement in updating the performance list, it's not going to punish the practice and keep taking the pension contributions. The practice can manually stop that. In terms of raising queries through the system, no, they would still go through the CSE, the Customer Support Centre at PCSE, or raise it through an online form. But there is a lot more that individuals can do to view their information and manage it by logging into PCSE Online. And then there's a couple of pensions questions that we won't have the answers to on this call. So Wayne's asked, does this portal have a designated response team for queries? So it's a bit of a mix. So it's still that first line of support is the Customer Support Centre, who are being trained on this now so that it's fresh for when it goes live. And they will be able to log in and view what the user can see as well. So it'll be the first time we're in a position where the person who's trying to help the user can log in and see what they're seeing. And hopefully if it's just a user understanding or user error, then that's something we could potentially fix there and then on the call. But it'll help our CSC team identify, do I need to hand this off to someone in the payments team for them to rectify, or can we fix it together just through a bit of guidance? No, in terms of designated response team, but yes, in terms of it'll be easier to get to the root cause of things that have gone wrong. Right, okay, so I'm going to say thank you first of all to Ryan for taking us through the processes. I hope you all found that useful. Thank you to Matt jumping on and answering some of the questions. And thank you to all of you as well for taking 90 minutes out of the day to go through this. I'll be sharing some links immediately after this, just to some guides that we have available. Once the recording's edited and available, I'll share that. And like I say, I'll get you the questions that have been asked and share those with you too.